What drives someone like Craig Romano to spend a lifetime chasing trails across the Pacific Northwest? Well, he's going to tell us. Welcome to RV Out West. I'm Brooks. Based in the Pacific Northwest, my family of four hits the road to explore the best of RV life out west. From hidden gems and epic destinations to helpful tips and real road stories. So grab your coffee and join the journey. The tires crunch to a stop. The engine ticks as it cools, and just beyond the windshield, the trailhead waits like an open invitation. This is where RV travel really can come alive. You're not just passing through places, you're stepping directly into them. 1 minute, you're brewing coffee in your own kitchen. The next, you're lacing up your boots and heading into towering forests, alpine lakes, or coastal bluffs. Hiking and RVing go hand in hand because they give you both freedom and access. The ability to chase the kind of moments you can't plan for, only stumble into somewhere between the road and the trail. For me, it's been a while since I've done much hiking. It's been a bit of a struggle as I need to work through some anxiety. You see, I'm on an insulin pump, and I don't want to be in the backcountry too long. If I have a hypoglycemic low out there, there's a possibility that I could be in some serious danger. Look, I carry a ton of sugar with me, and the insulin pump does alert me if I'm trending into that territory. So I'm always prepared, but still that thought is very real and somewhat scary for me, even though I am prepared. With that said, I am hoping to reintroduce myself back to the trails. I will be starting slow, easy distances, and rebuilding my confidence with each step. That's why I am genuinely excited to be bringing Craig Romano onto the show. If you spent any time exploring trails in the Pacific Northwest, chances are you've crossed paths with his work. As an author, podcaster, trail runner, and dedicated hiker, Craig has a way of connecting people to the outdoors that feels both inspiring and approachable. Having him join us is going to be a great opportunity to dig into the stories behind the trails, discover new places to explore, and hear firsthand what keeps him chasing the miles out there. Craig, thank you so much for joining us here on RV Out West.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your podcast, Bruce.
Craig, you've written extensively about hiking in the Pacific Northwest. What initially pulled you into the trail?
Boy, that's a tough question. I have been a writer since I was a teenager. I had my own column in my hometown newspaper. I initially started as a cyclist and then got into hiking and just love the outdoors, love writing, kind of pulled it together, did a lot of freelancing, and then things kind of came together for me about 25 years ago. I started working with Mountaineers Books, and that just really grew into my publishing empire, if you will.
Are you born and raised Washingtonian?
No, I'm a native New Englander, actually, so don't hold that against me. I'm a Patriots fan. But
We will not talk about Tom Brady then. We're just going to take that off the table altogether.
okay, got it. The Seahawks got their retribution in this
Yep.
last one, so
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So the redemption. No, yeah, I lived most of my younger years in New Hampshire, and that's where I got my love for the outdoors, and just ended up out in the Northwest. It was never intended on coming out here to stay permanently. And I ended up going to the University of Washington. And then my career as an outdoor writer really took off out here. And yeah, that's the short version.
Wow. So you came out to go to school, to university.
No, actually, I didn't.
You were already here for that?
No, I was going through a really difficult life change.
Okay.
And I came out to spend a summer with my buddy who I had bicycled across America with years ago. He was at the University of Washington. And I was just going to stay out here, get my head straight, and then go back to New Hampshire. And then as things turned out, there was a recession back in the Northeast at the time. And it's like, okay, I'll just stay here, work for a little while. Ended up going back to college later in my life. I went to UW in my 30s. You never know how life's going to lead you. And
No,
it's
you
been an
don't.
interesting journey.
Yeah, I spent a decade away from the Pacific Northwest, and I never intended for it to be a decade. I was 25 and I moved to the Caribbean, and I was like, oh, I'm
Wow.
going to go have this chapter in my life and go live in the Caribbean. And that chapter of 2 years was then from here to there to here to there and bouncing all around. And next thing I know, I blink and it's been like a decade. And I'm like, wow, it was wild how that kind of happens.
When you just It's interesting. So many younger people, particularly, I think they have their whole life planned out. They're going to do this by this and this, but I'll tell you, it doesn't work that way. And it's actually better that it doesn't work that way.
Yes.
Be open to things. And that's been the story of my life. I was a tour guide in Europe. It was something I never planned on doing. That kind of fell into my hands, and just being open to experiences and ideas and let life guide you along. And I'll tell you, it's been an incredible journey.
Well, talking about guiding, how was it that you specifically got into writing hiking guide books? Like, when was that epiphany moment for you where you're like, okay, I'm going to write a book about, whatever, hiking in the North Cascades or whatever it
Yeah,
might be?
that's a good question. So when I moved out here, I've always enjoyed guidebooks. And so I was reading all the Harvey Manning Irish Spring books, which are Bibles. Anybody who's lived here for a while and in the hiking scene knows those names. And boy, I would have loved to been in their position. Somewhere in the 90s, I decided I'm going to pitch my first book. And incidentally, it was an area that Manning Spring did not cover, and that's the eastern Washington, actually northeastern Washington, an area I really love. And my initial proposal was actually rejected because my publisher thought, oh, there's no interest in it. Years later, I ended up writing an Eastern Washington book, and it was a great seller, but that's a different story. But yeah, I just ended up, interesting enough, the first book I got pulled into, my publisher at the time was familiar with some of my works that I was doing with local magazines and wanted me to Irish Spring, his very last book. He had passed away before completing it. And so I and Karen Sykes, who wrote a long time for the Seattle PI, we were called in to finish it up. And so it was an honor that I actually, in essence, got to work with Irish Spring
Right. That's cool.
on his book. And that was a wildflower guide. And then the Mountaineers started, they really wanted to come up with a whole new series to replace the old 100 Hike series because Manning and Spring had not been getting on the trails. They were well up there in their age, and they wanted a new voice and representing just new perspectives and everything. And that's when the whole day hiking series was launched, and I was brought in on that. Yeah, things just took off from there, and I have written 27 books at this point in my life. Most of them with the Mountaineers. I've written a book for University of Washington. I never could have imagined that I would have written so many books. So, in covering from the Olympics to Eastern Washington.
Craig, you've spent a decade plus out there on these trails around the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, it's been 36 years I've been on the trails here in Washington. I actually had been to Washington 3 times before I moved out here. Twice was by bicycle. I bicycled across America a couple of times. Then I came out of summer to hike because when you're bicycling, I was missing all the backcountry.
Right.
And then since 1989, yeah, I've been hiking and trail running as much as I can. I've logged over 35,000 miles just in Washington. So it does not include all the other places that I spend time in. So,
okay. So you've logged 35,000 miles here in Washington State on various trails. What keeps you going back out there?
yeah, it's just the discovery. I love to keep moving. Again, I've been an endurance junkie my whole life. I was a long distance cyclist when I was younger, and now I'm an ultra runner. I love the challenge of being outside. I love what it does for my mental health. I love discovering new places constantly. There are so many places, trails, parks, preserves, wilderness areas. I want to see as many as I can before my body says no more and it's time to go. So it's just a constant sense of discovery. I had it as a child. I always wanted to see what was around that next corner, what was on that next trail. Boredom does not exist in my vocabulary. I can't understand people who are bored. I mean, you've got a whole world out there, right in your own backyard. You just start there.
It's so true. Well, so how has your relationship with the outdoors changed over time, especially as your work became more widely read?
It's a good question. I think in the beginning, I was definitely more selfish, I guess, in that I was just finding these places for myself. Wasn't really part of the outdoor community. Certainly, as my career evolved, and now I'm sharing with other people, it would be hypocritical to be as in more of a these are my secrets or my places or my life. So basically, what's really changed is I live a public life now. I realized that probably 15 years ago. Certainly with the advent of social media, when my publisher wanted me to get on that, and living a very, very public life. And it also makes me, stronger for being an advocate for public places and protection of areas, for trail work. I do a lot of work with the Washington Trails Association, with fundraising, with awareness. So kind of, just fallen into the role of ambassador, something I never really thought about as where I wanted to go, and it just kind of dropped into my lap. So I'm always conscious of that too. The responsibilities there too. I know a lot of people read my works and respect my works, and that's a heavy burden.
Is there a trail that you've never talked about in your guidebook that, you're selfishly hoarding to yourself that is available for somebody to go find on WTA.org or in one of your books? But is there just one trail that, and you don't need to tell me, you can just say yes, but you don't need to.
That's a good question too. Because I've often struggled with some of these places. Do I really want to put that in there? And what I found is that, first of all the popular trails are popular, so there's nothing I'm going to change there. And most of my favorite trails aren't the popular ones; they're off the beaten path. And in many cases, I don't mind sharing those because I need those trails to have more exposure so that we can keep them open. There are a few areas that I'm less likely to talk about a lot, not because I don't want to share. It's just I don't want bad behavior out there. As far my followers are great, but you know how things get shared. But if someone were to talk to me, and certainly when I'm traveling on the trail, I share things all the time. And I also know that some of my favorite trails and places I like to go are just very difficult to get to in length or the terrain that I can talk about them a lot, and there's not gonna be a lot of people going
Because
to
it
them.
just takes a lot of work just to
It
even
just
get to the
takes a lot of
trailhead.
effort.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you think people misunderstand about hiking here in the Pacific Northwest?
I don't know about this is kind of in general, and maybe I'm being too general.
That's okay.
So growing up in the 70s and 80s, there was a very, very big back to nature movement. And what I find now, the biggest difference between the hiking boom of today and the hiking boom back then is that people back then were more, again, I might be more general here, were more into the whole back to nature. And it was more of an experience of being in nature. And now it seems more focused on, it's about me. Look, I'm hitting all these peaks. Look, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm sharing things. And I find the difference. People, it's not the same experience where you're going out to the commune with nature. Instead, it's I'm going to go tackle this peak, look at something, not even realize what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
And the people with
what I
Bluetooth
do.
speakers.
Well, yeah, you're
I'm not
always
even
going
gonna get you started on that, and that's okay. I just said what I
yeah,
needed to say, and we're gonna leave it at that.
yeah. There's always going to be
Yeah.
challenges with
I'm
every
fine with your
generation.
headphones, put them in your ears and whatever, but,
Well, yeah, I agree, and that's one of my pet peeves. And on a positive note, it's getting better.
good.
About 10 years ago, when there was real proliferation of that, I think again through social media, the influencers who might have created some of these problems in the first place started realizing that there's responsibility, and I'm seeing a lot more people with influence who are preaching ethics and responsibility. And that's a great
And that's a
thing.
great thing, yeah.
Yeah.
The sense of purpose really is coming through in how you talk about the outdoors, and it naturally leads into the places that have shaped our perspectives. Across the Pacific Northwest, you've covered everything from well-traveled classics to quieter, lesser-known routes, and each of those trails seem to carry its own kind of story and meaning. Share with us about a hike you've done that completely changed your perspective on the outdoors or on yourself.
Wow, that's it. I have those experiences all the time. It's interesting. So one of the things I love about being on the trail, and particularly, I love going out with other people, but I spend a lot of time on my own. Again, as an ultra runner, I will go out and do 31-mile day hikes alone in the backcountry, and it allows me so much time to be reflective. And so I'm always learning about myself. And I think what's interesting, there's a lot of things I still don't know about myself as far as what I like, but I know what I don't like, and I know who I'm not. and and that's always been the outdoors. It's my comfort area. I go there all the time. Even as a writer, if I'm stuck, I just go out there. My mind's open. It's free. I don't wear headphones or listen to music. I want to listen to bird songs and the wind blowing through the trees. water cascading. That's what I want to hear. I always come back with new perspectives. I always come back with new ideas about myself or what's right. So to me, it is
Sanctuary.
it's meditative.
Yeah.
And so that happens almost on every trail I do. I've had some experience, probably going back to 1989 when I came out here. It was one of the darkest periods of my life. Very, very depressed. I was dealing with a lot of issues, and I did my first solo backpack. That was in Olympic National Park. And that was on the High Divide. And this was a very, very popular trail. It was popular in 89, but not nearly as popular as now. In a couple of days that I had out there, it was incredible, the wildlife experiences. And I remember sitting on the top of Bogoshiel Peak, watching a bear, sow, and a cub splashing in a little tarn. I encountered something 9 bears on that hike. Elk were bugling. I had a coyote come through my campsite. Marmots whistling. I
Oh,
felt so
cool.
alive. It was
Yeah,
amazing,
that's amazing.
beating the darkness of depression and everything, realizing how beautiful life is, and watching this incredible late September sunset, the fiery red sky. That's etched in my mind. The High Divide is a special place of mine. I like going back there. It's just an incredible area, and yeah, it kind of reinforced a lot of things for me I was dealing with as far as trying to get my life back together. So yeah, the High Divide would probably be it.
So the antithesis to that is, has there ever been a time on the trail that's tested you more than you expected? Perhaps things didn't go as planned or pushed you to the edge. What was your takeaway from that?
I was on another long run when totally underestimated the weather, dealing with snow and in summer and coming, and trying to stay warm and making the right decisions. Same things for my scrambling off trail, getting in a situation where it's like, this is sketchier than I thought it was going to be, and then having to remain calm, trying to calculate, assess, and again believe in yourself, trust in yourself to make the right decisions. Yeah, definitely. There's probably been times, there definitely were times out there that things might not have turned out so well. Well, getting back, I mean, I had a near death experience on Mount Shasta when I was
Tell us
32
about it.
years old. I was climbing up on the summit and got caught in an electrical storm. The fillings in my teeth were humming. Every hair on my body was rising. I was ready to get struck. I knew it was all over. I had an ice axe and crampons, so I was a conductor.
Right.
I got whited out, separated from my party, and then at one point I felt this calmness, like I'm going to die. It's all over. I'm going to get struck. And what happened at the time, my whole life flashed ahead of me. It's like you've heard these stories, but what was amazing, there was no regrets. You hear about people like they regret certain things. I was living the life that I've always wanted to live. There was absolutely no regrets in my path that I chose. The only thing, I didn't want to die at 32. I
Fair.
wanted to go that way at 92 or
Right.
102.
Right.
So it was a very cathartic moment in my life, probably the most challenging.
So what happened?
I survived.
Well,
I got
obviously,
down. I got down, just tried to get off the summit as fast as I can. We were whited out and everything. And our whole party got separated. We all got back together at Muir Camp. About 12 of us that were out on the mountain that day. Every one of us looked like we had seen a ghost or survived a war because we
Yeah,
had.
that's scary.
I have a whole new respect for lightning, for nature. Nature doesn't really care how you feel about anything. And I think a lot of people need to do that. Certainly as I've gotten older and I became an older parent too, I'm very careful about some of the risks I take that I used to take when I was younger as well. I want to live long.
You've explored everything from
Yeah.
all of these routes. So will you share with us 3 trails that you think are the most overlooked or underrated trails here in Washington State? And what is it about these trails that make them stand out for you?
So probably the Kettle Crest, Kettle Mountain. This is the Kettle River Range in northeastern Washington.
Okay.
Absolutely love that area. I spent a lot of time out there. It's rare that you see anybody on most of one of the things people, especially if you're in Western Washington and you think there's nothing in Eastern Washington, you would be very, very surprised at the northeastern part of the state. It's wild. The Kettle River Range isn't as awe-inspiring and rocky and such as the North Cascades, but it's true wilderness. There's grizzly bears and moose and lynx and I've had amazing wildlife encounters there because I can go out all day and never see anybody. Definitely that area. Likewise, in the southeast corner of the state, the Blue Mountains, another area that is overlooked. Most people have no idea there's a whole mountain range there, half in Oregon, half in Washington. Same thing. First place I ever encountered a cougar on the trail was in the Blue Mountains in the Wanaha, Tucannon Wilderness. It's just another area that people aren't going to. It's a long, long way from Seattle. A lot of people just don't even know it exists. It was sacred territory to the Nez Perce people. I mean, the elk hunters in Eastern Washington know about it, and that's about the only time you're going to encounter people is during elk season. Yeah. So
Is
those
there a
are two of my
particular trail there that really stands out?
the Mount Misery Trail, and it's so funny because it's really not a miserable trail at all. It's actually a really nice trail.
Somebody was
goes
naming
along.
it to say, "Stay off my trail."
Yeah, exactly. It's a long traverse across the Blue Mountains, and you can do a short, short out and back, or do the whole thing, and do all the side trails. You can go up to Oregon Butte, which is a fire lookout with views out to the Wallowa
Oh,
Mountains
sounds
in
amazing.
Oregon, to
Yeah.
yeah, the Hell's Canyon area in Idaho, Oregon. So those are regions. Again, there's so many trails in the Olympics. One of my favorite places that's overlooked. Again, everybody tends to go to the whole rainforest. The Queets is an amazing place. The Bogoshiel is another. Doesn't get the crowds. You still have all the big trees. You're going to see more elk. So and there's a connector trail between the Snyder Jackson Trail, which is one of my favorite, that goes between the Hoh and the Bogoshiel, and you will see nobody on that trail, and you may encounter, lots of elk, bears. So there are so many, and
That's
and
cool.
this is what's interesting too, because right next to a lot of the popular trails are these other trails that people are just bypassing. Same thing, the enchantments, overrun crazy, but you can go just a couple valleys over and be in areas like the Mormon Lakes, in the Chihuahua Mountains, and maybe only encounter a dozen people.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there one trail that you think everybody should experience at least once?
Boy, that's a good question too. There's just so many choices here.
I
So I wrote a
know.
book, The 100 Classic Hikes of
Yep.
Washington. And in that book, it's not necessarily the 100 best in 100 class, because there's hikes in there, Mount Rainier National Park, as well as Kamiak Butte on the Palouse. Now, obviously, you can't compare those, but what they each do is they represent a different part of the state, and the very best. So when you're on Kamiak Butte, you're in the Palouse and you're seeing wildflowers in this rolling landscape, and it is out of this world. And you're not going to see that in Mount Rainier. So basically, yeah, I would say my 100 Classic Hikes book would be, if you really want to experience the full gambit of what Washington has, that's where you start. And I try to pick each area. Same thing like in Western Washington on the Long Beach Peninsula, I have Ledbetter Point, which is an unbelievable place. It's a peninsula at the mouth of the Willapa Bay. No jetties, just the way nature intended it to be. It flows. You got 12 miles of wild, undeveloped, car-free beaches, all kinds of birds, sand
That
dunes.
looks so cool.
You're gonna wade. You're gonna wade water to get out there half the year. It's a classic experience that you're going to get that you wouldn't get at the Olympic Coast or anywhere else. So yeah, those are
That's cool.
those are the trails
Yeah.
I would guide you to get an experience that the state has to offer, instead of just staying in your little niche area where you've been hiking.
Well, when you are planning a hike or, doing your own research, kind of what resources are you using from planning your hike, the route, checking weather, finding current trail conditions, etc.? Kind of what is some of that initial research and planning you do before you head out to the trailhead?
Yeah, so because now I've covered so much of Washington, my books are my resources in
Right.
Washington. There's
Of course.
very little of the state I haven't been to. Say I'm heading out to a different area. I just got back from Utah, so I'm going to look at maps. I love maps, and that paper maps too, as opposed to online maps. I want to get the Forest Service maps. I want to get the state maps. I want to look at the big picture and see what intrigues me, because I read maps like, wow, there's a blank spot on a map. What could possibly be there? And then I'm going to go to the managing agencies' websites. So whether it's the Forest Service, Park Service, state parks, what it be, and pull up information there. Then in many cases, I'm going to find the Utah me or the California me. Find those trusted guidebook authors and buy their books and see what they have. Then I'll go to some of the crowdsource. I'll go to some of the clubs, like the WTA here and the equivalent to other areas, and start seeing some of the crowdsource reports for update. But always skeptical on a lot of these too, because I know when it's crowdsourced, you have no idea who's saying it. It's funny what people will call hard is easy to me. What people say long is short to me. What people
Right.
think are difficult is just an average hike
Right.
to me.
Right.
And half the time people have the information wrong too. I've seen more, they're on the wrong trail. They're reporting seeing a wolf when it was a coyote. So you always got to be very, very careful with anything that's crowdsourced. But yeah, looking at all these resources, and then half the fun too, because I don't want to know too much, just the basic information, because again, I want that whole sense of discovery when I'm out there. So if everything, which is also, I'm finding interesting today's day and age, there's this whole movement of apps, the trail that you can click on, see pictures of every single thing. It's like, it's nuts. It's almost like watching a movie. I don't need that kind of information. Just tell me the tread, tell me if there's anything I need to know, like river crossings, snow, things like that, anything I need to be prepared. And then I want to see the scenery. I don't need to see every pictures of it all along the
Yeah,
way.
you don't need to see it before.
Don't go anywhere, because coming up, more great stories and trail insight with Craig Romano. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, camperalert.com. It's summertime and the great outdoors are calling. But did you forget to book a campsite 9 months ago? Well, don't worry. Say goodbye to sold-out campgrounds with Camper Alerts. With Camper Alerts, you can choose your campground, select your site type, and set a personalized alert. And when a site becomes available, they will notify you. It's that simple. Visit camperalerts.com today and start setting your alerts. Welcome back to the show. Before the break, Craig Romano was sharing how his journey on the trails first began and what keeps that passion alive over the years. Now, we're diving deeper into the places, stories, and lessons that have shaped his experiences out here in the Pacific Northwest. And maybe even uncover a few trails you will want to add to your list. So let's get right back into it.
Well, hearing you kind of break down the trails that we just were talking about and the nuances on these routes really brings the landscape to life in a very practical way. That attention to detail is also something that shows up in how you've chosen to document and share these places, which leads naturally into the work that you've done through your books. I'm really excited for you that the third edition of Day Hiking Olympic Peninsula will be available starting this Friday, May 1st. What can hikers expect that is different than previous versions of this book?
Well, first, the book for the first time, the entire book is in color. So all those pictures are going to come to life now.
Oh, wonderful. That's a big change. That's cool.
That is a big change.
That's exciting. Okay.
It is, because it's so hard to replicate. And the other thing that's interesting when you're writing a guidebook as opposed to the web, I have to be selective. I have to usually pick just one, maybe two pictures to represent that entire hike. So it's got to pack a punch. Where the web, you can do a photo dump. You can put everything up there. So that makes it more interesting how I want to present that hike to you, because when I write about a hike, I want to concentrate on one aspect of it. And from reading my books, one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is that a lot of guidebooks are just like manuals. It's like turn left, turn right, pretty view. I like to give so much more depth. I get into the human history. I get into the natural history. And present that. My background is in history and in forestry, and I bring all that out. And so the difference between a pine and a fir. That that this was a Native American trading route, or the pioneer had settled here, and you're going to look for evidence of that, and it's going to bring that trail to life. Everything I write about, I hike. That's another thing. There are books out there that secondhand information I can always tell too. It's really easy. So I hike everything that I write about. And when I update an edition, I have to go out there again to see the changes, because here in the Northwest, we have probably the biggest influencers are flooding. Then those have been getting worse. So we've been losing access. Wildfires, and those are getting worse. And budget cuts, and those are getting worse. And all three of those things are deeply affecting our trails in our public lands. Occasionally I have to pull a trail out of a book from a previous edition because it's no longer hikeable, or it's not safe. It can't be recommended. New trails, we're fortunate sometimes that a new trail is built or an extension. So I want to add that into the book.
Is there one that will be in the?
Oh yeah, there's
some new trails in the day hiking.
There are some new ones
edition?
new ones in the book. And also I like to expand on the previous hikes too. So maybe it only ended at a certain point, or maybe there's been a new side trail. So I give you more options. The book was originally marketed when it first came out as day hiking series, which I was never crazy about because a lot of people backpack multiple lengths. Just because it's called day hiking, you can still, backpack a lot of these. So
Yeah.
I've made it a point with the newer editions to talk about campsites and information like that if people want to spend the night there. So everything is updated, it's expanded. There's new hikes in it, new photos.
So when you're out on the hikes, you are going to be working on this new revision to this book. So you're like, oh, I need to go hike this trail. Are you bringing a pad and paper with you to kind of jot down some, notes, or are you using voice memo on your phone? Like, hey, I want to, talk about this, or this has changed since are you kind of bringing those things with you along as you go?
Yes. So the phone is used for pictures. I don't do any voice. I handwrite everything. And the main reason for that, it's classic. You write it down, you read it, it sticks. If I speak into something and put into a file, I'm going to forget about it. It's also going to be a nightmare trying to retrieve it. Yes, I old school. I have little
Yeah, that's great.
notepads, jotting things down. And then, the great thing, of course, with phones now, I mean, I can take pictures of every sign, if I need to record things like that. And so that information, or take pictures if I come to a kiosk, instead of having to jot things down, I can take pictures of the notes there. And then I also do all the mapping. I track everything that because what I find too is this is getting better, but certainly when the whole GPS was coming in, everything, we'd find that a lot of these trail measurements that were measured old school weren't accurate. A lot of them were short or long, and you could usually tell. And then trails change. This is what's interesting too, especially the Forest Service that's been pretty much eviscerated. They're not getting out. They're not doing the mapping and such. So we'll find that a lot of maps and books and even websites have wrong information because they're just passing on old information. Realize, boy, that trail is on the left side of the creek, not the right side of the creek. So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at when I'm going out there and just being detailed. In the same token, though, when I write, I don't want to hose you down with details that it bores you. So it was interesting. I grew up with the Appalachian Mountain Club, and they have great guidebooks, but their books are so specific. It's like, here's a big boulder. And then when I came out west, it was exact opposites. Like Harvey Manning's like, oh, this just trail goes on for a little way. And so I'm trying to be in the middle of that, trying to give you enough of those really important details, but still not boring you with every creek crossing and everything out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this naturally kind of leads into a bigger picture of what you've taken from all of those miles and the lessons you've learned throughout your years of hiking and biking and trail running and being in the outdoors that you now share with others who are stepping onto the trail. What advice would you give to someone who feels intimidated about getting started?
Oh, and, that's a great question. First of all, I can definitely understand that in the past, certainly from certain types of people who feel like they didn't belong in the wilderness because it wasn't welcoming. There's been great improvements there as far as welcoming all Americans of all walks of life and all backgrounds. These are your public lands. You belong here as well as anyone else. So with that said, realize your public lands are yours. You belong there. But again, it can be intimidating if you've spend your whole life in an urban environment and you think, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, out there,
Right?
and you need to develop backcountry savvy and how to do that. A lot of it's the old school way. This is the trouble with Instagram and Facebook and all that. They show pretty pictures and people say, God, I want to go there. They're not telling you the details. They're not telling you, how difficult it is, how dangerous it can be. You don't want to skip those steps. And this is why so many people recently in the outdoors are getting in trouble because they're seeing those pretty pictures and showing up and they're totally unprepared.
They're in flip flops and shorts and
Yeah,
yeah.
no water bottle and it's just,
Yeah.
we've all seen it. And it's been,
Yep.
and I was just down in Bryce just last week and I was watching a search and rescue and it's like, here we go again. That doesn't have to happen. In the old days, one, if your parents didn't teach you about the outdoors, there were Boy Scouts and things like that. Groups like the Mountaineers, wonderful place to start. You can take classes on every level. So just from the very beginning to backpacking, to scrambling, to snowshoeing, cross country skiing. I highly encourage it. Same thing, look for your trusted sources. I mean, books, guidebooks. There's also books just specifically on how to start hiking, how to start backpacking, how to start trail running. There's great websites on this too. Not stay away from a lot of that crowdsourced stuff. But
Yep.
again, definitely go into forums afterwards, get into information. You can join hiking forums and trail running forums, and so backpacking. And again, ask those questions. Do a lot of research. What I'm finding a lot now, people are looking for shortcuts. Shortcuts aren't good because you need to you really need to learn a lot of these things, and don't just ask strangers. Don't get informed. Just ask strangers. Everyone's different. You may have special needs, or you may have what's easy for one person is going to be difficult for others. You may have a fear of heights, or so all these things can be addressed. But don't be afraid to go to multiple sources, and then start easy. I mean, don't just be like a bird and jump out of the nest and learn to fly. There are lots of great. If you've never spent any time just hiking in general, I mean, start with your urban parks. Just getting the idea of just what it feels like to walk 5 miles. Now, with I have a caveat there. 5 miles on a paved city trail is going to be very,
Not the
very
same.
different than five
Right.
miles that's two
Right.
thousand feet of elevation gain. So understand, work within your limits too. If you're haven't been in shape, there's that's the thing. Start, keep you could start by doing your city parks and getting your heart rate up and just seeing what it's like. So don't just jump in. I see people doing that all the time, just going way over their head and getting into trouble. You want the right gear. Learn about weather here in the Northwest too, because this stuff can kill you. You want to be prepared. Make sure you have the right layers. You want to have learn about the 10 essentials and why that's important to have extra food and shelter and such. And again, just go out with someone who's experienced. So definitely look for. There's a lot of people that love mentoring people. We love sharing our passions. I love hiking. I love running. I love getting other people hiking and running. And then we're sharing a passion. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely
Okay.
don't skip out there. Don't just see a pretty picture on Instagram and take off without knowing what's involved.
What's involved? What is something that you hope someone who's stepped off the trail after reading about a hike in one of your books, what do you hope they take with them?
Another great question. Respect for the land. Our natural areas are under a lot of threats, and you can't take that for granted. And they don't just, we need you to be involved. So if you're out on this hike and the place had an incredible effect on you and beautiful nature, realize that you need to be involved to make sure that one, it stays protected, two, that we can protect other areas, and get involved with trails. Doing trail maintenance, trail work. I've been a member of the Washington Trails Association and the Trail Keepers of Oregon. And you can just give them money if you don't have time, or get out on a trail crew, which is a lot of fun. You get to bond with other people. So giving back, becoming part of the community, and that's so important now. This whole we live in an age of isolation now, thanks to the internet and everything else. People are craving community, and there is a wonderful hiking community and trail running community and trail building community. And I would just get involved and find other people that have the similar interests and passions, and give back to the trails, and make your community and the world a better place.
Those lessons you shared really bring everything that we've been talking about together: experience, perspective, time on the trail, and they're exactly what people can carry with them long after the hike is over. For anyone who wants to go deeper into your work or start planning their own adventures, there are plenty of ways to learn more and follow along with what you're doing. Where can people find your books?
Yep, my books are available at just about all your local bookstores throughout Washington and Oregon, and even into Idaho, British Columbia. You can get them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Powell's. So you can REI. So you can definitely, and through the Mountaineers too, directly, of course. I do a lot of public speaking, particularly when I have a new book. So you can go to my website, craigromano.com, and see where I'll be speaking next. And with my new Olympic book, I will be touring all over Western Washington again. And again, I love it. I love going out and meeting people and talking to people. And I talk about the book, but I also, no topic, you can ask me all kinds of questions about policy and everything else that's going on. I'm involved with Facebook and Instagram, and I'm always talking about trails, places, stuff I'm working on, places I just got back from. And also I've created what I believe a really welcoming community. I have a fairly good following that there seems to be a lot of respect, and that's wonderful because there's so much divisiveness out there. I encourage people to be open, and again, you don't have to agree with me either on topics. You can tell me I'm wrong as long as we're respectful and coming from. I'm going to welcome that. So I really I'm
Is
trying
that
to build a community.
is that a Facebook group that you've
Yeah,
started?
just my author's site, my page, Craig Romano Guidebook. You can write to me. Also, I always, I write back to everybody. So through my website, craigromano.com. But yeah, I again, and I get approached on the trail all the time too. So I actually got recognized in Utah.
Oh, did you? That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Nice.
it's great. I love it. And I've met great people on the trail, people that I've met in the virtual world have actually become real friends with me. One actually became a co-author. So
Fun.
um,
And I'm going to put all of the links to, your socials, your website, some of the trails we talked about, etc. They'll be in the show notes. And so you can go find that over at rvoutwest.com.
great.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for your time today, chatting with me about hiking in Washington State, your adventures, your travels. It has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Brooks. This likewise.
All right, my friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or family member. Also, the conversation doesn't have to end here. If anything we talked about sparked your curiosity, head over to rvoutwest.com and check out the show notes. We've got links to everything we mentioned so you can dive deeper, explore more, and maybe even start planning your next hike. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free monthly newsletter. That's where we share things first, like behind the scenes updates, new destinations, travel guides, and a few extras that we don't always talk about on the show. It's the best way to stay connected with us and be a part of the community we are all building. Appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Next week, we're switching gears and hitting the road on two wheels as we dive into all things biking, from classic pedal power to the growing world of e-bikes. With National Bike Month right around the corner, we'll be talking about how to bring bikes along in your RV adventures, where to ride, and how e-bikes are opening up the outdoors to more people than ever. So be sure to tune in next Monday. Thanks for listening to RV Out West. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed the show, tell a friend and please leave a rating or a review. It would mean a lot. Special thanks to Scott Home Music for our intro song, We Are One. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to join in on the conversation. Now, get out there, explore, and go see what's beyond the horizon.